Hi everyone, this is Linda with Linda's New Plants for you. Today we're going to talk about my beautiful watermelon peperomia. To start off with, I want to just make the distinction that this is really not a true succulent, although we look at it as a succulent because it does hold moisture and it's got very thick leaves. So it's typical of a succulent plant, but it's not considered a true succulent in the botanical world. It is also a moisture-loving plant, however not in the soil, which it took me a long time to figure out the proper care for this plant. I've killed 2 of them prior to this. I've also propagated them successfully, but there's a few things that I want to talk about that I'm not sure if, the majority of people know or understand or what have you. And some of the things that I learned while trying to keep these plants going. Number 1, this does not like bright light. It likes diffused light and even partial shade. I know people that grow this in their north window, and while I don't know if that's a good place where you live, I know that it's been done successfully. I have mine on a plant stand, and one of the things that happened to me was that stand is very close to a window, and in the winter, I didn't realize it, but the cold that was coming off that window, even though it's a fairly new window and it's a thermopane, was enough that it was too much for this plant, and that is one of the main causes of this kind of damage. When you see dark spots on the back of your watermelon peperomia, there's a very good chance that that is caused by cold damage. They don't like breezes and they don't like cold temperatures. So if you have yours near a window and you live in a climate that has, harsh winters like I do, I live in southeastern Wisconsin, and get it away from your windows and your doors that you open and close frequently. The other thing I wanted to show you is, this one's not showing it real well, but I think I got one over here. When you give this plant too much light, this is what happens. It starts to fade. It fades the variegation out of there, the watermelon-y look, if you will. Oh, and there, she's gone. This is from overwater. They get overwatered very easily, so that'll segue right into what I wanted to talk about next. This plant likes to dry out between waterings. However, it'll give you the same signs if it's too much water as it will if there's not enough water. And I know that is so frustrating for people, especially myself, because how are you supposed to know? Well, it's a matter of keeping a close eye on your plants and checking on them frequently and paying attention. And that's really the only way, unless you use a moisture meter. But even then, it might take a while with that moisture meter to figure out when is the best time to water. This plant I purchased, it's in a Cashco pot. The inside pot is the nursery plastic, and it came in this ceramic pot. And I just left it, even though these are not my favorite style and they really don't go with my decor. I didn't want to upset this plant, so I just left it alone. It was planted in the nursery in a very the soil is very porous. It's got some sand in it. It looks like it's got a lot of coco coir. or something similar to that. So it's very, let me see if I can get some in my hand here and show you. Very, very airy soil. There's no perlite in here, but there are other things that can break up the soil so you don't get that mud, you know, that heavy compaction. One of the other things, and now, right now, this plant needs water, and the way I can tell is these drooping leaves. They weren't like this yesterday. So that, and I haven't watered it, so I know it's not, this is not from overwater. This is telling me it wants a drink. So I'm going to be doing that here after I'm done talking to my plant friends about it. But I wanted to tell you also, when you get the puckering leaves, that is also another sign of needing water, because it's trying to hold on to the water that it has. When you see the damage, the splitting, this I believe was done maybe in shipping. This is a dramatic example. But you can see here, it looks like something was chewing on it. Nothing was chewing on it. This plant does not have any pests. This comes from dryness. The leaves just split because they get too dry. They love humidity. And I would never have guessed that before I owned this, just because, like I said, it's kind of got that look of being a succulent, and so I wouldn't have thought that this likes high humidity, but it does. It likes humidity at about 60% or higher. And when it doesn't get that, it dries out, it splits, and that's when you get this going on. Now there are other causes for that. I mean, there are some insects that will leave that kind of damage, but on this particular plant and the ones I've owned in the past, that turned out to be what the issue was. It wasn't getting enough humidity, and I had it in too bright a light. So with this particular plant, I put it in not so bright a light. In fact, the light it's in is a little too bright. I got to move it again. And the humidity level is not what it should be for what I have here. And while I'm getting new growth, I'm getting new babies. I don't know if you can see these in here, but there's a whole bunch of little shoots coming up through here. So I know she's doing okay. So I'm going to give her a good water, and then I'm going to let her dry out. And I almost waited too long on this. Had I not caught that today, by tomorrow she'd be probably laying down on the table. And that's when you get the damage. So you don't really even want to wait that long, but and because this is in a pot within a pot, I'm not going to give it too much. If I could see what was going on underneath there, I might give it even a little bit more, but I'm going to let that sit for a bit. Yeah, I think that's probably enough. And then I'll keep an eye on it. And if it doesn't perk way back up and stand up, and the leaves aren't standing up like they should, like they were this morning, they were up to here, I might throw a little bit more water in there, but like I said, they have very fine root system too. That's another thing. They get overwatered very easily. So be careful on the watering. If you can get the watering and the light down pat, I think you'll be very, very happy with this plant. As far as growing, propagating, it can be done in several different ways. The last one that I propagated, I believe I did for my daughter, if I'm not mistaken, and I simply took I didn't take a real old leaf, and I didn't take a real young leaf. I took something that looked like maybe the teenager, like maybe this one. She's fairly healthy. She's got a little edging problem, but fairly healthy. Or maybe this one. She's kind of new, so that probably isn't the best pick. Let me see if I can find one here. If I was to propagate this today, I would probably take maybe one of these. Not quite adult, not an old leaf, but not a real young leaf either. And you can either cut it down here at the soil, at the crown of the plant, and put the whole thing in water, which is what I did, and it rooted fairly quickly. I want to say it was a couple, 2 weeks maybe, which I thought was phenomenal for this plant. The other way that you can propagate it is you can cut off a leaf right about here, and you take this whole thing and stick that in soil up to about here. The other thing you can do is cut that leaf, cut it in half, and you can take the bottom of that leaf, stick it in the soil, and you can take the top half of this leaf and stick that in soil. So I'm going to show you how to do that, so don't stress, don't fret. I'm going to do it right now for you so that you can see what I'm talking about. And you can put it in a bag. That will help, especially at this time of year. You don't have to, but then you got to kind of really keep an eye on the water, because when you're propagating this, you do not want it to dry out, but you don't want to overwater it either, because it'll rot. So we're going to take trusty little greenhouse planter here. I'm going to fill it up to the top. I'm going to put a little bit of water in because we want it to stick where we put it. And let's see. Yeah, I keep going back to the same leaf, so that must be the one I'm supposed to pick. And I gotta make sure I got the right one. I'm gonna cut it right down to the stem. There she is. Now this one I'm going to cut here, and I'm going to cut it across here. Going to put this one in the pot. I'm putting it in with the stem down into the water, and then I'm just barely covering the leaf. And this one, I'm just going to put the leaf in. Now, I've done this with many plants. I've done it with the Peperomia before, and I've had success. And the cut end, it goes in the soil. I've done it with begonias. This is a preferred method for begonia cuttings. In fact, with begonias, you can cut one leaf into many cuttings and put those all in soil. And maybe someday I'll show you that. But this is the best. I'm going to put a little more soil in here. I want this stem down in there. Now you don't want to cover up more than about 1/3 of that leaf because it will cause it to rot. I want to try to keep it to 1/3, just under 1/2, okay? Alright. That's all there is to it. And there you have your cuttings. Now I am going to opt to put this in a bag because I don't want to have to worry about it drying out on me. And right now, there's enough water, just a drop to the top of this. There's enough water, and plenty enough water in here to keep this going for a while. So I'm going to put it in a bag and put it in a bright light, medium to bright light, and it's going to root. I'll get new shoots and new plants coming up from this. So that is one way. And then the other way, of course, is just to put it in water. So I'm not going to do that today because I have enough water propagations going in my area where I propagate, and I just don't want to have another one to worry about right now, especially coming into the holidays here. So I'm going to leave that alone. But that's pretty self-explanatory. You cut it off down here at the crown. You stick this in water. Put it in rooting powder. I probably could have used that on these two. And even though it's sitting right in front of me on the table, I forget to use it. But it's not a big deal. It'll just help it root a little faster. But definitely try this in water because it does work. And I had a whole little nice clump of roots on there for when I did that. So again, it's a very rewarding plant, and if you can just get the watering down pat and the lighting, you won the battle. And the watering is probably the biggest thing. Again, if you overwater this, it's gonna, the damage will be done before you even know that there's a problem because it has such a fine root system. The other thing is, I like to keep these kind of root bound. They don't like to be messed with. So when I do go to put this in a bigger pot, and I think it's going to be probably in the near future, I am going to water it first because I don't want to disrupt the roots. I'm going to water it. I'm going to hopefully pull it out all in one hunk and then put it in the bigger pot. I don't know if that's going to work with this one because it's got such fine roots, but that's one way to do it. But it does not like to be repotted. So I'm going to leave her where she is for right now, and we'll see what happens with all her new growth that's coming up there. And I don't know about you guys, but I've got plants that are just taking off like it's early spring. And I think that happened to me last year too. I don't know what's happening here, but I'm happy. I'm grateful for it, but I'm confused. The only thing I can think of is I probably have it a little warmer in here than I normally do because in the summer I cannot handle that heat and humidity, and sometimes in order to get that humidity down I gotta have the air on a little stronger than normal, and that does bring down the temps. So that could be the problem, or the issue, or the reason I should say, why my plants are doing so much better right now than in the middle of summer. But anyway, that's that. So I hope if you have questions on this, feel free to comment in the comment section, and I hope I've helped some of you. And I would definitely give this plant a try. It's a beautiful plant, and it's very rewarding. It's just gorgeous to look at. And when her watermelon veins are showing, they can get very prominent. This plant actually isn't the best specimen of this plant, and part of it is because it's been in too high a light. So like I said, I'm going to be moving that tonight. I'm going to be putting it in a different area, and also give it a little more humidity. So hopefully that will help. And then at that point, once these newer shoots that are coming through get bigger, then I'll probably cut off these damaged ones, because in fact, I'm going to cut off this big one right now, because that's a big leaf. It's taking a lot to support it, and it really is pretty sad looking. And there again, I got the cold damage on the back. So I do believe this was like this when I bought it, though, so I didn't do that, thank goodness. So that's that. Hopefully in a few hours these poor little drooping ones will pop back up again, and she'll be smiling at me. Alright, I think that's it. We covered the water, the light, the cold, the humidity. That's pretty much all we need to know, right? Okay. Just remember, she likes high humidity. And by high, I mean 60 or above, preferably above. Okay. Thank you for watching. Bye now.